Jim, what are you doing? Oh, folks, listen, on today's episode, the entire episode is our interview with Mark and Amber Archer. Who are they? They're a husband and wife filmmaking team. They have a 501c3 nonprofit organization called Fearless Features, and we're discussing their latest release called Dysphoria. Um, Folks, stay tuned for that. You will not want to miss that episode. Pretty much that. I mean, some little stuff Jim and I will talk about on what? What is this show called, Jim?
It is called Two Guys.
It is.
One Coup.
Sure is.
Welcome to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast with Dale and Jim, where the truth matters and progressives' feelings don't. We bring you the facts from the perspective of two average, everyday guys who will never apologize for being America first, for adhering to our great Constitution, and for saluting the flag that our brothers and sisters have fought and died for. And now, here's Dale and Jim.
You okay today, Jim?
Yeah, there's some. I did have a positive thing that happened over the weekend that I'd like to talk about. And no,
What is that, Jim?
It was not
Tell
the
us.
Bengals game on Sunday. That was
It was
terrible.
not.
That was horrible, and that was. And
Yeah.
I was there, and ugh. Anyway, my son, and I
Yes.
think I can say his name. I don't care. He can hit me if he wants to. But Josh asked
Mhm.
his then girlfriend Maddie for her hand in marriage, and she accepted.
She said no. Oh, she said yes,
Surprisingly.
didn't she?
Surprisingly, she accepted.
We don't know why.
So,
Glutton
no,
for
seriously, that's too. Very happy for him.
Yeah, congratulations
Couldn't
to him.
be. I
Yeah.
do not believe I could be any happier to have
Yeah.
a future daughter-in-law like her. She's great. She's
Wow.
fantastic,
That's
and
good
so
news.
congratulations to Josh and Maddie. They are.
Yep.
And I am getting. I hope, whatever. I'm getting this much closer to grandchildren.
Yes, I know. I know. Yeah, I don't know what that.
Of course, it could be 5 years down the road, but still, it's
Well, it could be.
closer.
It's closer. It's you're almost there. Yeah, congratulations to them.
Yeah.
They're of course.
And you
I've
know
known
Josh, so,
your son,
yeah,
for
yeah.
a while, and I did get to meet his now fiance, who is absolutely adorable and a wonderful person. And so, congratulations to them. I told the missus, I said, well, look forward to a wedding soon.
Yep.
We're going to be heading. Hopefully, they have a destination wedding somewhere in like the Maldives or something. But no,
Don't give him any ideas. All right.
Maldives. Okay, it's done. It's a date. But yeah, that'll be that's good for them. Congratulations to them both. Happy for you and
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Jim and everybody else, because that's big news. It's
But I
exciting.
will say
they
this,
deserve it. They're very nice people.
I have talked to my daughter
Mhm.
because she's got a serious boyfriend right now, and
Mhm.
I'm trying to get both of my kids because
Yeah.
Great America Ballpark, which for those of you who don't know is where the Cincinnati Reds play, they
Yeah.
have weddings.
Oh wow.
Neither one of my children care to have a wedding.
They don't want to do it. It's just not that
kind of upsetting.
Wow.
I am like
That is
really
upsetting.
upset about that.
Who raised them?
I don't know. I'm upset.
Yeah.
Because you get married on home plate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how
come on.
come on, do it, Yeah,
Well,
that's crazy. But
Guess we'll have to have it local.
I guess maybe, traditional stuff,
Well, when I got married, I wanted a home plate up at the altar, and
and
it
it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. So
Oh, no.
whatever. It is what
Yeah.
it is.
You can renew your vows and then do it at
No,
ballpark, Jim.
I am not giving her a chance to. No.
Yeah, giving her a chance to say no this
Nope.
time? Or somebody stand
Why
up and
would
say, "I
anybody
object."
want to give their spouse a chance to say no?
Say no. I know. Why would they want that? Why in the world would they
She
give them
screwed
that
up. It's her fault. She's the one that chose.
You got a
me.
life sentence now, woman.
That's right.
That's it.
Hey,
Sentence to life.
She married down. That's her problem.
That's
Not
her
mine.
problem. That is her problem for sure.
I married up without question, but
Yeah.
that's her problem. Not mine.
That's right. Yeah. Good call there. Jim, today, big show.
Yes.
Really,
Phenomenal.
folks. So Jim and I, we're going to show you the trailer for this movie, Dysphoria. Probably kind of get a guess what it's about ahead of time, but Jim and I were privileged enough to get a private screening, a sneak peek of the entire film before it's released December 1st. It's a documentary, and it has to do with the entire transgender movement. And what was interesting is, and we'll discuss it on the interview, but what the impact communism has on it.
Mm-hmm.
The impact, obviously, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show, the schools and the school administrators have had on it. But then some groups like Antifa, their impact on the whole dysphoria and gender transitioning of our children, that whole movement. Incredible, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, folks, I'll tell you what, Jim, unless you have anything else to add at this point, stay tuned for that interview. Jim and I will be back. Here's the trailer of it. Then the interview following that, and Jim and I will be back to wrap it up.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to connect the dots here and see where this is going. They are going to intrude in families. It's going to get much worse. It has already started. Unless and until people put their foot down, it's going to get really, really ugly.
When you first research this issue, the only things that come up are affirm your child. This is a really significant issue that your child has now fallen into.
This is evil. This is absolute evil that is coming at our kids. And if our faith community is not going to stand between that evil and our children, I don't know what hope we have.
There's absolutely no way that we could have gotten from 2015 to 2018 where we had transgender everywhere, okay? It took them almost 15 years to get gay marriage. Well, it took them 3 to 5 years to get this transgender stuff.
When you stand by and do nothing, then you are essentially saying, I'm okay with the human carnage and the human suffering that is coming from this transgender, gender ideological agenda.
This is something that is affecting families in possibly every congregation in America.
The way that the devil and his forces lose this is by speaking truth.
God will not hold us guiltless for our cowardice, and that's what it is. It's cowardice in the pulpit. It's cowardice in our churches. It's cowardice from Christians in government.
Do what you're doing for the generations to come. Do your job.
Well, folks, we got a treat for you today. As our viewers just saw the trailer for the film Dysphoria, we have with us Mark and Amber Archer. They are a husband and wife filmmaking team, and they're the ones responsible for that film, folks. Their mission is to educate, motivate, and inspire communities everywhere to stand for biblical principles and truth. That is film number 3. The previous one was Inwood Drive. Did I have that right? And that's about, it says here, local abortionist in the community, how they fought back and won. So I haven't seen that, but I plan on doing that. And then the Mind Polluters, which our viewers and audience probably will be very familiar with this topic. It's a film about graphic, comprehensive sex ed and social emotional learning being forced on children of all ages through the wonderful education system. Mark and Amber, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're very happy to have you here. We were fortunate to get a private screening of the film Dysphoria, and I can tell you it is amazing. Very well done, very educational, very informative, very truthful, very hard-hitting, and quite sad in a lot of ways. I mean, it's truly sad on what's going on, and our audience is familiar with that too, because we've all had to be experts on this subject one way or another, because it's being forced upon us to be. So again, thank you for coming on. I want to start first, before we get into the film, a little bit about you two and your background and how you folks got into making films and what inspired you to do it, and everything else you can tell us. So
we'll just jump off the deep end right from the beginning.
Do it. Yeah. It's the only way to get started.
Well, thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
As far as how we got started at this, so let me do the thumbnail version of it. So I started in production in my teens. I had early success in my 20s in feature films, and produced my first film at 22, won Sundance with that, sold it to Sony Pictures. And
Wow.
then, kind of that started my career. Went through a lot of ups and downs with that, but I grew up in the church and went to a Christian school. I knew all the right answers, but when I got out of that environment, I very quickly ran from the Lord. So I really was living as a prodigal. And fast forward, then my life and career was really kind of falling apart. And I, as a man, I struggled with a lot of addictions. I struggled with alcohol and nicotine addictions, but one of the things that I struggled with a lot was pornography, which led me to a bad habit of hanging out in seedy places like strip clubs. And it's a hard thing, I think, for a lot of men to confess. It's hard for them to admit.
Sure.
And especially to admit what a scummy habit it really is. But that was me. And and one night I ended up in a strip club spending all of my money, and and that's where we met. So
he spent all of his money because I took all of his money that night.
This is not an endorsement to go.
No, it is not.
No.
The Lord has so dramatically changed our lives. So I did not know the Lord.
Yeah.
I had a rough childhood and upbringing, and found myself in my early 20s. So from 20 to 25, I was a dancer and a DJ, a bartender. You name it. I was in the club doing all the things, but just happened to meet this guy one night, as chance would have it. And so this is like the origin of sort of how we got together. We exchanged emails because, cell phones and texting wasn't really that big in,
05.
And he wanted to come and take me out on a date. And so he showed up, but I promptly, ditched him, didn't even go. And then, this was about a month has gone by. And I remember it was Halloween and I got off of work and emailed him, and he immediately responded, and we went out for a drink. And that's sort of how our relationship started. But I knew, interestingly enough, I had started going to a church near where I lived. And when I started going to this church, and the way I got there was, it was a yard sign. It was a yard sign in the median that I would see every Sunday as I left, Saturday night work. And so I said, I'm going to clean myself up and I'm going to go to church, knowing I so desperately wanted whatever it was, this joy that I always saw people in church had, and I wanted to know what it was. And so I would go, and interestingly enough, it was at a movie theater. we laugh about it now because I think, how cool for just the story of it, of here's somebody who's not saved. I started going to this movie theater to meet the Lord. And what we do today is serve the Lord making movies.
That is full circle. Very full circle.
So basically, she basically got drafted into the business.
Yeah.
So
sure. I was, in fact, I was working on a movie when she and I met, and it was a terrible, terrible film endeavor.
So glad it never saw the light of day.
It fell apart promptly. But that's how we got together and got started. The Lord brought us together through those terrible circumstances, and together we started to grow as believers. She came to the Lord, I came back to the Lord, and we got married, started a family, and I had actually quit filmmaking for a couple of years. Right after our first child. I got burned out, and I quit. Then I walked away, went back to school to finish my engineering degree, and spent 3.5 years not doing any kind of production work. And then the Lord orchestrated. She was doing portrait photography. She needed promotional video pieces. She kind of talked me into coming back to shoot some stuff, and I hadn't touched a camera in 3 years. And so together we sort of started this up again. Then I could not find a job in engineering at all. So I'm an engineer on paper, but I've never actually worked as an engineer. Because they would look at my you know, my resume, and all I had was, you know, CEO of motion picture company, and then this freshly minted degree, and they just didn't know what to do with me. And truthfully, I got done with my degree and realized that that really the point of that, from the Lord's perspective, was to reset me. And so I had walked away, and I had let all of that old person go. And then when we started up again, I told the Lord, I said, I will only come back to this if I can do it for you. And so that's what started us doing what we're doing now. So Fearless Features is a nonprofit, and we started off doing short films of people coming to Christ. And then one morning we were talking, and she said,
I just looked at him and I said, you know, I mean, when he says we get up early, I mean, we're up at 3:30 every morning to read and pray and just talk about the day. Because otherwise, you know, we just recently started homeschooling 2 of our children this year. And so it is a busy household always.
Right. Sure.
And so we were up early and praying about, you know, really where we thought the Lord was leading. And I said, and I just looked at him, I said, I think we're supposed to be doing movies. And he just kind of looked and he smiled and he said, wow.
Well, no, I had sworn off ever doing a movie again. It had been over a decade since I'd done anything of that length.
Wow.
So, you know, feature length is anything, I think it's technically over 40 minutes. But so, you know, we were just doing short projects, 3 to 5 minutes, you know, and a lot of corporate videos, stuff like that. I hadn't done anything feature length in 10 years, and I couldn't see myself ever going back to that. But suddenly this morning, when she brought it up,
let's do it.
And so I had, the Lord had laid on my heart the film that we would start with, and that was what became The Inwood Drive. So.
Oh wow,
that's
phenomenal. That is crazy. I mean, that's an amazing story, because you think about the path you were down, both of you, honestly, and you think about, you know, that is on purpose and by design. Then
absolutely,
by a higher being, right? Because you're going down these terrible paths. I say terrible. I mean, I don't know how, you know, but it's not good. You know, it's not the life, you know.
No, listen, I was a drug addict and an alcoholic, in and out of jail, house arrest. I mean, community service. I was a wretch.
Well, you're also an example that if you work hard, admit, take responsibility for what you've done. Look at what you can do. Look at what you can do. And because how many people do we know that they fail once and they, you know, nobody likes me. I do this, you know, nobody cares and all that stuff. And
they keep going down that path because
you're an inspiration.
Well,
thank you for sharing your story. That was
and even
absolutely, thank you.
Even to just, you know, to give an example of realizing the consequences that we put on ourselves, right? So during that time of these dancing years, it was September of 2003, and I was involved in a bad car accident, and the driver was killed on impact. And I've had 3 reconstructive surgeries on my face. And when I woke up, so what had happened was I was out drinking with friends. I was in the back seat of this car. We were going at a high rate of speed down 465 when I was living in Indianapolis at the time. And there was construction stopped on 465. And the driver of the car, my friend, and I didn't know it because I was so drunk, they put me in the car and left me there and continued partying, came back, and we were all going home. It was, you know, early morning. And he never stopped, and we went up underneath a semi-trailer. The top of the car came down and crushed my face. And when I woke up, I was in an emergency room with people on both sides of me, holding me down and stitching my tongue back together. I had glass all over in my face. And by the time that the nurse took me to my room after they were done and, stitched me up, and she said, Amber, she says, please don't go and look at yourself. And I didn't know how bad it was, right? I mean, they couldn't give me any kind of pain medication because I was so inebriated. So I've got all of these things happening to me. I can feel every bit of it. And I got up as soon as she left, and I thought, wow. And I got up and I went over to the mirror, and I just stood there and I looked at myself. I could not even cry. I couldn't cry. I realized in that moment, I was dealing with the consequences of all of the poor choices I had made in my life. And so it was really in that moment. It's like, you either pull it together or you're going to continue down this path. And it wasn't the person I wanted to be.
Right.
And ironically, about the same time that she was dealing with that, I was dealing with my entire life falling apart and I was dealing with the consequences of my poor decisions. And I had been in a very bad marriage that didn't last more than a year. And so that was falling apart. My business was falling apart. I was on the verge of losing everything. So we were both dealing with the consequences of our life decisions. And she had that moment where she looked at herself in the mirror. I had a similar thing. I wasn't in an accident, but I was involved in doing a show where we were shooting in a bar. And so we would shoot and we would drink, right? And I remember one morning looking at myself in the mirror, and I looked terrible because that's the life I was living. And I thought, I don't want to, this is not me. What am I doing? So,
wow.
Here, you guys thought we were going to talk about a movie. We're going to talk about Jesus.
No, because I want to add one thing before we get into the questions in the movie. And because how many individuals have addictions, okay, or demons, however you want to call it.
Yeah.
How many of them they find? I don't, you find God, he's always been there, but you discover that God again, or you get into religion and you realize that Jesus and God, or whatever religion you choose to pray, but everybody always goes to that, and then you have all these people who don't, these naysayers, and religion, here we go again, praying or thanking God and all that stuff. It's like a lot of people fall to it when they're down at where they feel they can go no further, and you reach out and you say, I need help, and God's usually the one they turn to. And it's just amazing how we always sit there, because you hear the left say, religions, keep prayers out of school, do this, do that, do this, do that. You know what? Now's the time we have to pray. I don't care. You have to pray. And so thank you for sharing your stories. This was good because
absolutely.
We have to know where everything comes from, right? Because we talk about this on the show all the time, that we just get tired of the people that can't take responsibility for their own lives. They just can't. It's always somebody else's fault. And so when you have success stories, like yourselves, it's nice. It's nice to see. And then now we can get into the movie and stuff. But it's great. I love it. I love it. It's just, absolutely.
I'm glad we spent the time talking about that, because I'm just always so impressed by people's lives and their path. And everybody has a story. Every person has a story. Everybody has a story. You never know it. You're at the grocery store and that clerk's having a bad day. I don't know why. And so I try to be conscious of that, and not be like, that clerk was an idiot, or whatever. I don't know what their life's going through. Right. And so to hear yours, and then the path that you took, and then for people to deny there's a God at that point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Come on. I mean, you're foolish. You're absolutely foolish not to, because that you two are clear examples that there is. and the paths you were going and how it all happened. So yeah, super happy you shared that with us. So
hey, we're happy to share Jesus
well,
anytime.
All of us, all of us in our lives,
Yeah.
right? All of us have somebody who struggles with addiction, who struggles with depression or whatever. They struggle, and so
or whatever. Yeah,
your story, share it. And because I have family members that are going to watch this and they need to hear it, and it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I think too, the interesting thing is, especially for me and working on a project like Dysphoria, these people they're going through this identity crisis, right? And they have this alter ego that's going on, and I always and it's fascinating for me because even the first date that we went on, he didn't even know my real name. I mean, we still laugh about that today.
Oh, sure.
Because, it wasn't until after that I had a stage name. I know what these people are going through. It may not be to the extent of changing my sex, gender, but to the extent of you're somebody else. It's a facade. It's not who you are.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which then does lead us right into this. Seeing what we're seeing across the country and the world for that matter, but I'll specifically keep with the United States. That's what I'm about more than anything anyways. But the push from the left, the push from education, the push from social media, you really don't realize how much there is until you dig deep into something like this, or you hear stories from people like January and Bernadette and Jeff Younger and people in the film that people will get to know. Did it even surprise you, honestly, when you started looking in it, and why Dysphoria? What made you go down that path for this film? Did somebody reach out to you? Is it something you guys kind of experienced, or what made you make this particular film? It's certainly in the forefront and everybody's talking about, the whole transgender movement and the push in the schools and parental rights and them doing it without, parents' knowledge. So it makes sense. But for you to, I don't know what kind of inspired you to make this particular
film. If you go back to after we got done with Inwood Drive, our first film, and it finally got completed in 2020. So it's right when everything was shutting down. It shut down. So it went straight to streaming, and we were just praying about, okay, Lord, where are we going? What are we doing? And we were watching an episode of Glenn Beck about global grooming. And I shared that to my personal Facebook page, and Christy Stutzman, who was in the Mind Polluters, she reached out and she said, hey, Amber, we're having a conference up here in Napanee. You and Mark should think about coming. And we've been friends with Christy for years. And I'm like, whatever. I never really did conferences, like whatever. But we said, okay, we'll go.
I've filmed a lot of conferences and I don't like them.
Bad association there with conferences.
I've got this bad association of having to sit back there.
The brutal honesty of it all. Really.
That was classic. Right? I like it.
Yeah.
And so we went and we recorded this conference and, just using our gifts and talents where we can, right?
Sure.
And to help other people and serve the Lord. And we left and immediately knew that the Mind Polluters was what the Lord was asking us to do. We're like, wow, there's too many doors that are opening here. And as we prayed about it, like this was where the Lord was leading. And so, sure enough, so we get that film done. And again, we're just praying and asking the Lord, where are we going? Because that one was thick. I mean, it was heavy going through that and having to pull all those pieces together.
Oh, sure.
And then it was like the Lord was like, you guys aren't done yet. You have to, because we're like, can't we just go and do a horse movie? Like, why are we doing these documentaries? and so, there was, and it was a section of Mary McAllister from the Mind Polluters. If you watch it, she starts referencing a case that happens to be January Littlejohn's case, but she doesn't say who it is in the Mind Polluters. And so we revisited her interview and started pulling on that thread, and that just opened a whole new can of worms. And we're like, oh my gosh, what in the world is going on here? And so that's where it came from.
Yeah, her interview was the last one that we filmed.
Oh wow!
For the Mind Polluters. And I remember when she said that, and then we got done with that with her interview, and we started asking her more questions about it, and she said, well, because they were in litigation, so she couldn't, she said, I can't really talk about it on camera. So we turned the camera off and said, okay, tell us about it. And so she gave us more details. And for me, that was where it clicked, and I went, this is the next one. And the Lord just, he lays that on you. And I understood that it was going to be about that, and the title hit me.
Yeah.
And that's where, so that's how it goes.
It's when we look at this, and when you went down that rabbit hole, if you will, and you go down there, and I guess my question is for you, when you do this story and you see how this started, whether it be by a counselor in a school or another parent, for crying out loud, and we can get into more of that situation, but how can we make people understand? Because this is my problem with how we do this is we come in and say a counselor is not okay. They are not able or should be able to tell a child, well, you're feeling this way because you got to be in other sex, right? They're not training in that. They don't have anything in that. So when you go down when you went down this story and you introduced these individuals and you saw that the schools were starting to do this and not telling the children, what was your thought? I'm sure it's probably like ours, but what was your thought when you first saw that and you heard these stories and it's like, what do we need to do?
Well, it was, what can we do, right? And I think that's the thing that all of us need to ask ourselves. What can I control? And how can I get involved? Yeah. Because when you do start to see these things happen, and so for us, it's just taking the gifts and talents that the Lord has given us, and we're like, more people have to know about this. So we make movies.
I think
you guys do podcasts, and I mean, we are one body, many parts. We all have a job to do.
Right.
Yeah. It's also it's the same kind of thing that motivated, at least for me, that motivated me when we were doing the Mind Polluters, and then into Dysphoria is I have a real problem with bullies, and the Lord is just, and I think as men we should take that lead. We need to take that role seriously of being warriors, being defenders of the innocent, especially.
Agreed.
And so I don't care if the bully's wearing a dress or not, a bully's a bully.
Right.
And so just to be blunt about it, I mean, it just ticks me off. And I see them picking on these poor kids. And
that's right.
And it just, you just feel that righteous indignation of, I know you're not doing this. So what we can do as filmmakers, and you see it, the very first thing that comes on screen on Dysphoria is a passage that says, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And that really is our kind of our creed with what we do. Because when you expose the deeds that are done in the darkness, the cockroaches start to scramble. And we have seen the effect that just exposing them has, where things were motivating the people who are in positions to make change. We're just storytellers. We can't force people to do things, but we can motivate large numbers of people who then motivate those individuals to make the change. So.
Yep, that's a good way to
follow up.
Put it.
The follow up on that is that it's funny because nothing of this funny. I'm sorry, but the situation that has created from it is most times people just let things go. Right? We get involved, we get active, and then we're just going to walk. This is not going away. There's a number of us.
This is not
Moms
going away.
for Liberty, for Moms for America, for all these different individuals, yourselves included. We're not going to be complacent on this. We are not going to sit back. We're not going to let this happen. We're going to fight. We're going to get torn down, we're probably not going to win,
Mhm.
which is a scary thought, right? We're probably not going to win, but we're not stop fighting. We're just not going to do it. And your movie helps make people understand. But guys, for all of you out there who are not believing that this is going on, that you don't see that it's going on, and now you need to see it. So,
yeah, unfortunately, Jim and I have had some conversations with some educators in person, protesting a Moms for Liberty summit we were at. And they're brutal. These people are just brutal individuals in general, and filthy individuals in general. But they're telling us, F off. They're telling us all these things. Leave our kids alone. That kind of the narrative that they keep pushing. And what I thought was great, and I want to tell everybody about the movie, but it comes out December 1st, and there's no way I'm going to do that to folks, because we want them to go see it, and we'll get into all that too. But the fact that Antifa and a group like that is involved on purpose and by design in order to create havoc and everything else that Antifa does. It was just shocking to me, the amount of hatred those who are trying to send the message of this is not right. We need to protect children. You're giving them absolutely hormones that are absolutely stopping puberty, which affects their whole chemical makeup, which is detrimental to their entire lives, as we keep seeing. I was just shocked at the amount of hate or misunderstanding or whatever you want to call it. I thought we could all just get behind hey, don't do this to children. I mean, this is barbaric. It's satanic. It's evil. It's purest of evil. It's not the case. And so what I also thought then was interesting is how this goes far back to communism, which is discussed in the film. And we've talked about, quotes from Hitler, give me 4 years of your children or the youth and you'll never get them back. And, I mean, that's kind of what I think is happening with all of this, including this whole transgender farce that they're trying to portray on everybody. Did it, going down the path that you had to in this, did it shock you? Was it like, absolutely, you hear the stories in the movie and people will get to hear those. They're shocking to me. Every single one of them is just an absolute shock. Like how is this happening, and why, and where did it start from? I mean, I don't know. It's not much of a question as it is. I'm just still baffled by the whole transgender pushing that towards children movement. But did it even shock you too? I mean, because it sure shocked the heck out of me when I heard all this.
I don't know if it shocked us necessarily, because we do so much research and we talk to so many people, and so there's already an element of understanding, and and you can't, when you read the scriptures, you see how dark and evil things can be. I mean, and going back to you said something earlier about we probably won't win anyway, but I always, it prompted me, and I thought, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We have to all just continue to be exposing them, together, and so that change will happen, because there are a lot of people. The only way that those kids who are suffering are going to learn anything or to be rescued or saved is when we speak truth.
Right.
And so
I would add to that, to answer your question, does it shock us when we learn these things? Yes and no. When you do stuff like this, you have to maintain discipline in your spiritual life to be firmly rooted in the Word, and so that we're constantly reminded that, to your point about, will we win? Well, we know how the book ends, so we know that in the end the Lord will be victorious. We also see that we're living in precarious times, definitely looking more and more like the last days. And so we know that, as we say in the film, things are going to go from bad to worse. So, but that's not to say that things that we learn specifically as we're doing research for a film like Dysphoria don't shock us. There were definitely, and there's a lot of things that, you have to decide from a storytelling standpoint, how far can I take the audience down this?
Yeah, there's a lot that you don't see.
So there's a lot of things. I bet. So people that have studied this, when they watch the film, they will see a lot of things visually referenced and talked about, and then we kind of dip out and go to somewhere else, because there's a lot more that you can talk about. For example, the occult side of things. I mean, right there in the beginning sequence of the film, you see Baphomet, you see Baal, you see. I mean, we could do a whole series on that, right? But you can't. You can only take people so far, because you have to realize the kind of the psychology of people, and you're already asking them to sip from a fire hydrant.
It's true, right? Yeah, you're right. And then people, and you got to keep, and there's got to be a focus, right? So there's got to be a focal point. Like, this is what's happening. This is, what we can do to help eradicate it, whatever. You start going into deeper, and then it becomes almost overwhelming, right? For people like,
and it does affect
how much more can we do?
It does affect you when you're studying it, because you're carrying so much weight with this, and then making those decisions about how much of this do I share, because it's so dark.
Right.
And so as you filter that out, it does affect you.
We always talk on the show. This country, a lot of people say in the last 10 years probably, we've been moving towards socialism, and no, we feel we're going straight to communism. We're bypassing socialism altogether, just using it as a stepping stone, if you will. But in the book, you reference this book, or in the movie, you reference this book, The Naked Communist.
Yeah.
And my question is, one, is this something you knew about in just whatever real teaching maybe you had, or something that class that you went through, or is this something that during your research you discovered this? Because in the movie, when you detail different points within, what they say you need to do, get the children, that which is obviously a Hitler thing,
right.
give me time with your youth. I don't need you. Right. And, but how did you find that book? And then how were you able to put it to what is going on today? Because I think that's what's important about what we talk about in terms of communism and socialism that we're heading to. This is the perfect example, and I would like to get that book, but this is the perfect example of what we are talking about. And you guys hit it right on the head. So how did you find it? And was this part of your research, or was this the inspiration maybe behind what evil is going on here?
Well, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I think The Naked Communist, we researched that when we were doing the mind polluters to some extent.
Because we always try to get to the heart of the matter.
Because that fits right in with that too.
We're always trying to get to the heart of the matter. Like, what is it that people don't understand? How can we help them understand to move them, out of this ideology? Because that's really what it is. Everything we're talking about communism. It's an ideology, and so trying.
A failed idea.
It's failed over and over and over again.
Over and over.
I heard somebody, another filmmaker, I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about what you do with documentary films in particular. They say they refer to them as pearl stringers. You take this one and attach it to this one and attach it to this one. And in fact, when people's reaction to seeing Dysphoria, somebody just said the other night, you connected the dots for me, right? So there's a lot of people and we're not experts. We're just, the Lord has put us in this position and gifted us to be connected to a lot of people. You know, we listen to a lot of people, we read a lot of other people, and we glean from them. And what we're saying is not necessarily new. We're just putting it in, repackaging it in a different format so people can understand. But there's been a lot of people through the years that have said this exact same thing. And so, but you know, it's about connecting the dots. There's a lot of people that you hear them, they say, you know, I knew about communism, I knew about transgenderism, I knew about this, but you tied it all together, and now I see how it's all connected.
Didn't know the connection.
And that's
correct.
That's what we do is we look at, you know, try to get the 30,000 foot view of the systems. Basically, how does this all work, and try to help people to understand that.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah, and quite nicely, by the way, because you know, even when I think Jim and I, when we first started hearing the stories and I don't think we even gave it a thought like, oh, well, this stems from some old writings, right? I mean, this goes back, and it stems from that. We never gave that a thought. We frankly couldn't understand how anybody thought this was the right thing. You know, we were all I'm familiar with transgender adults and you know, that kind of thing. But I never saw the correlation. And of course, I don't understand it. You know, I sometimes I claim that it's just not, I guess not my. How could I understand it? Because I don't think that way. So it's very difficult for me to see what they might be going through. But it's, to me, and I always thought, well, they're adults, you know, just adults do what adults do, you know, I mean, but it's the supposed adults in the room that are making this happen towards our children. And then that's the part that so now I'm just like, I can't agree with any of it, like any of the movement. Right. You know, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's baffling. They're doing it for a reason. And I think it is complete control of the youth, or to me, it's almost and at a much lower level, but similar to, hey, y'all wear masks, right? This social experiment to see how far we can go, to see how much people will do, get those jabs, get the vaccines, wear these masks, you know, stay indoors, do, you know, and when you comply like that, that's when now they know they got you, right? So, the stories in the movie, I won't go back to that. I won't say who it is, but there's a particular gentleman that you interview, whose wife was I believe a
pediatrician.
If I'm not, and not to get too deep in it because I don't want to give it away, but that's the story there. They're all sad. Don't get me wrong, but God give him credit, because the anger I had just watching the story, you know, was so, it just was infuriating. That's the one that shocked me probably out of all of them really at that point, because I just couldn't believe what was happening here. I know this is happening to so many other people. You talk to him, it's got to be happening across the country to many, many other people. Do we even know the numbers? Do we even know the scope of it all at this point?
Oh, probably not.
Is there any way to know?
Way. No, because there's no way, shame involved in this, right? Think about all the parents who their kids come home from school and tell them that, oh, hey, and literally, we had a screening on Saturday night in Napanee. Just the day before, I had a woman from Texas text me and tell me, my pastor's friend, he just came and confessed to him that his daughter came home from school and said she wanted to be a boy. I mean, and these families are devastated. They have no idea who to turn to.
Sure.
How can now I feel like, you know, in their position, I feel like I failed as a parent and I did something wrong. So there's a lot of hurt families. I mean, people, I mean, parents and children. And so it's so devastating to see, but I don't think I don't think any of us can even comprehend the impact that this is having across not only our nation, but the world.
Right. It's been said that, you know, one of Satan's greatest tricks on mankind is convincing the world that he doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about, trying to, the shock factor that people have, and I think part of it, not you can't say this across the board, but part of the shock factor is because we have been conditioned as a society, especially in the United States, to not believe in right or wrong anymore, right? So if there's no absolutes, then you don't believe in right or wrong. And so when absolute evil shows up and invades your life, of course you're going to be blown away by it, because you don't, if you're in denial about the existence of God and then of course the existence of Satan, then when something like this hits you, you're not going to have any idea how to react to it, because you don't think that any of this is real.
Right.
But suddenly it's very real. And so I think, and going back to your question about how do we keep perspective in this, I think staying rooted in Scripture and always knowing that it's not a conspiracy theory, it's reality, that there is a conspiracy. Right. It is Satan trying to undermine everything that the Lord has put in place.
Our battle's not against flesh and blood.
Right. So is it any wonder that, anything that the Lord has created, Satan wants to do the opposite, right? He created man and woman. So Satan wants to confuse the snot out of everybody. God created life. And so he wants to destroy life. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. So.
We see today that, we have to do this for the children, because look at the suicide rates. We have everybody they throw this at us where there's no statistics. Right? Maybe the suicide rates go up because you're forcing a child to take a hormone that they're not used to having, and then they have these mental issues, chemically and then go
castrating.
Because we talk about this a lot. Europe, which is usually, I hate to say they're ahead of us in this case, but they started doing this with children earlier, right? They have these studies. They've stopped. They stopped now. They do not allow kids to have cross hormones. They do not allow to do this because their studies showed that the depression they had going in, they still have that depression after they've gone through the surgeries or through the chemicals, whatever they put into their bodies. We Americans, it's like we think we can do it better. When Bernie Sanders says socialism is great, we can do the socialism because all these other countries do it wrong. We can do it better. No, socialism is not good. You can't do that. And so when you look at that, but then America, they look at it and they say, oh, we'll be fine. We'll be able to do that. So, and then we look at the suicide rates of adults that have this done. Dale and I talked about this. It's up. It's like after 7 years, okay, it increases, what was it, 10 times? Because you initially get changed and you get the love. You get oh, that's so awesome. Way to go, way to go.
You get the attention.
Think of this as a child's perspective. You're getting all the attention. Oh, you're great. And then, by God, you hit 18 years old and you go to college. Who am I? I'm alone. Yeah. Where am I at? Yeah. So when you do that and you do this movie, Satan, because I'm sorry, he's written all over this. I mean, this is bad. This is evil. Yeah. And so when you look at this and, we always have to sit here and say, okay, if you want to talk statistics, let's do statistics. But don't just say, oh, you don't care about kids. You want them to kill themselves. I can say that the reverse way, but that's not fixing anything. So when you do this, as you did this movie, do you feel that in the end, because I do, in the end, that when people watch this movie with an open mind, okay, I think we can get some minds changed. But the problem is not having people like us there. Okay, it's how do we reach the ones who believe this is okay?
Well, interesting. And that's the thing. For us, we look at it and say, I love you enough to tell you the truth. And that's really where our films come from. We watched The Mind Polluters when it got translated into Spanish. It's in 145 different countries. And we watched 2 transgender men, but they were biological women who were presenting themselves as men and obviously have been taking testosterone for quite a long time. And they have a YouTube channel with over 20,000 followers on it. And they live streamed the Mind Polluters. I mean, of course it was illegal, pirated, but whatever. Besides the point, at least it's reaching them and the gospel is shared, right? And that's why we present Christ in all of our films. But we watched them, and and I was sitting there and just, Google Translate, looking at their conversation that was happening in the chat box while they were streaming the Mind Polluters to their 20,000 plus followers.
Yeah.
And these people were all outraged that kids were being targeted with these pornographic books, right? And so you've got this whole community of transgenders and LGBTQ, and they're all looking and going, well, this is horrible. And then when the gospel is shared, both of these women, biological women who are trying to be men, they're sitting there, and I felt it was so heartbreaking to see, and even to watch, because it was like no one had ever told them the truth. One of them, even when the gospel's being presented, she leans forward and wipes a tear from her eye. I mean, it's in those moments that you go, wow, these films reach communities that none of us would have the capability of walking into and saying, hey, would you listen to what we have to say? And so, we're beyond grateful and blessed that the Lord has allowed us the opportunity to humbly do this work as unto him, and to be able to reach people literally around the world.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, the reach that it had was beyond even what you thought the scope
absolutely
would be, or could be, which is, that's amazing.
And I can tell you, and this is how we know it's the Lord. I'll tell you, because we spent zero marketing dollars on the Mind Polluters. Zero. We had no money to market the film. It was all grassroots, word of mouth. And so we know it's the Lord. It's in 145 countries in all 50 states.
Yeah, how?
And
how
you
does
know
that
what's
happen?
really sad about this?
Correct.
If you
You're
try,
right.
like if I went to my local public school and I said, I would love for you to watch this movie, they won't allow it in.
Oh no!
Mostly because religion is in there, right? Because God, we can't.
Try to get the church to play it.
Yeah, we can talk. We can talk about all your pronouns, but we can't talk about God. Okay, I get it. Whatever.
Yeah.
No, I don't get it. But that's the way it is. But yeah, that's part of it. I would love for this to be shown at schools, because I think it needs to be shown. The other side needs to be shown, and they're not hearing the other side.
We're
haters. We're evil.
I would love
We want children to hurt themselves. That's what we're called. That's what we are considered, right? No, watch this. See what's going on. But can we get them to change? And I think
it should be mandatory.
But I am glad you pointed that out. There were some people that were able to say, okay, no, this is not right. So that's what I was hoping. Because all of us agree the same thing, right? We're going to watch it. We're going to love it. We're going to, oh my God, let's do it. How can you get the other people who don't agree with it to watch it? So I'm glad to hear that you did that. Well, so thank you. That's good.
Yeah. It's hard because it's not really up to you who's watching.
Well, curiosity kills the cat.
So that's why you have to.
I said curiosity kills the cat, because I can tell you, even at our Saturday screening, we had opposition there, and they have to think about it. Like they sat and they watched and they left with a copy of the Mind Polluters, the DVD. So I know that it's reaching people. Even now, even today. I mean, as little as we have right now to go on, and Dysphoria. I mean, people. When we first let a handful of people watch it, and they want us to take out all references of Satan. Like, no, guys, this is our ministry. This is the Lord's directing. We cannot take this stuff out.
And can you go into a little bit about what when I said schools, you said churches? Can you go Can you go into that or no? I mean, it's
sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I love to call it the churches. Our ministry is for the church. We speak the truth, but we're primarily trying to speak to the church, to the believers, the Christians, because that is the solution. is that the people of the Lord need to get involved. You can't just you can't just make films that talk about the problem and then say here's the political solution. There is no political solution to this. This is a moral breakdown of society, and politics is downstream from society, right? We have lousy politics because we have an immoral populace. And why do we have that? Because the church has put itself downstream from society and politics. The church is supposed to be upstream from everything.
Right.
So the church in America has abdicated its own authority by getting in line, trying to be popular instead of speaking the truth in love. So the mind polluters, even Inwood Drive, the mind polluters, and now Dysphoria, the vast majority of churches will not even entertain letting you even speak about these things. And we talk about it in Dysphoria. You saw, all three of those parents basically calling out the churches for not even speaking of. They won't even talk about this stuff. So is it any wonder why our society thinks that it's okay, right? When we talked when we did Inwood Drive, and we were talking specifically about the abortion issue, and over and over and over and over and over again, you hear these stories of women saying, I thought it was wrong, but it was legal, and the church didn't say anything about it, so I figured it must be okay. Well, that's on the church. That's on, and so, the churches are more opposed to a film like Dysphoria or The Mind Polluters than even worse than some of our opposition.
It's crazy to think about, but but then that leads back to that almighty dollar. It's the same reason Boston Children's Hospital will push the surgeries. I mean, the amount of money, the multi-billion-dollar industry that is transgender surgery to begin with, and growing, is literally leading the charge for all of this. And then, of course, you talked about like the tax exempt, and the church is afraid to lose that tax exempt status. And it's weird because I think then, who cares? You're supposed to be doing this work. This is God's work, and you're supposed to be doing that. What do you care about that tax exempt status? But we've seen so many opposed to transgender surgeries or whatever. We've seen them doxxed. We've seen their careers ended. We've seen financially it ruined people just by opposing that view. Now, on the same respect, we've also seen corporations suffer from promoting it. Bud Light comes as an example, that kind of thing, so it does go both ways. So I think the more and more this film gets out there, and the more we all talk about it in general, and the root cause of it, and how to get the message out there, I think eventually I do think we win. I do think we win this battle. So because most people throughout their day, let's be honest with you, most of us are like, I get up, I go to work, or I get a cup of coffee, I go to work, I come home, I eat, I go to bed, I get up, same routine. And they really don't think much about things like this. A lot of people hate politics. They don't want to have anything to do with it, hence why sometimes we're left with leadership like we have now, because they don't care. But I think the more and more it gets out there, the more and more people are shocked by it, and they hear the message. And I think it's super important to do so. I was very impressed on the way Dysphoria was done, the way the interviews were. I just want to tell you this, because I don't, and I'll be honest with you too. I didn't go into it thinking, I'm like, well, no. I'm like, are these two filmmakers, they've made this documentary, and I'm thinking, okay,
it's gonna suck. It's hey, well, we get it all the time,
right? So
the number
with you, I thought
the number one thing that people always say, and we know, and we always laugh at each other. Everybody always says the first thing out of their mouths, "Wow, that was so well done."
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Me. And I'm thinking, what was I thinking? I almost felt like I insulted you by saying
No,
it, you know, and I'm like,
we get it all the time.
It's not how I mean it, but I kind of meant it that way.
No, but
you
that's
know?
it. Because let's face it, faith-based films is like
cheesy content.
It's like saying cheesy Hallmark, right? I mean,
yeah, I know.
When people say that, and we'll laugh, and I always say, to us, that means we kept it in focus, right? I mean, it's just it's.
You did.
We've been at this for a long time.
It's a true. It's a true documentary.
Yeah.
It's a true documentary when there's nothing in it you can disprove. Right.
Oh,
I mean, because how many documentaries we see that people just put their own spin on it, right?
Well, I can tell you, mm-hmm. I can tell you, there's pure documentaries, and then most of what you watch on television is scripted,
mm-hmm.
right? And this started.
Yes.
Good examples of this is what started in the mid to late '90s, the reality television, Survivor and things like that. That's all scripted.
Of course.
Yeah. There's nothing genuine about any of that. And when we do our films, and when we go to interview people, most of the time they'll say, "Well, aren't you going to send me a list of questions?" We say, "No,
nope.
We'll send you a brief description of what we want to ask you about, but we don't want people to give prepared answers because we sit down."
Correct. It's spontaneous. It's the right.
And I say, I'll be back here, and you're going to sit and talk to Amber. Forget about the guy with the cameras, and that's how it works, and that's so everything you're seeing is.
And that's
real.
that's what made it so well. Yeah, you're right, because of the scripted. We, just for this. Our little podcast, people say, well, can you send me a list of questions you want to ask? And I'm like, what? Spontaneous. It's like, now I'm reading from this script, like, hey, how did you get started in it? Like,
we have had like 3 or 4.
I don't even like reading about you, like at the beginning, because I hate reading. Well, that I hate reading, but I don't want it to sound like I'm reading something, and you don't want a documentary that sounds like
we
that.
had 3 to 4 guests that did that. They sent us, so we ask them one question off the list, and then we go our own way. So if it's somebody who does political science, I'm not going to bring up climate change. All right, I'm not going to, but we're going to talk about something that's not on this list because we're not going to do that. But no, it's a true documentary.
It's a real conversation,
and because we've all learned, and I know this is but we all watch. Well, a lot of us watch Making a Murderer, right, on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Told this was a documentary. Well, Candace Owen proved it wasn't. Okay, so and that's why I like about this, because when you hear documentaries that, like Dale was talking about, oh, okay, here we go. Somebody's putting their own spin on it. Is this true? Mm-hmm. I dare anybody to go in, research these 3 individuals, research what you talked about, research all this stuff. There's nothing they're going to be able to disprove.
And disprove
nothing.
And
disprove that's what's awesome about this movie.
It's not.
So
it's indisputable.
It's funny because when the mind polluters started hitting its stride, and people started, the left wing lunatic media started coming after us. And it started in Nebraska. It was the Omaha Herald, right?
Something like that.
And then that led to
the Washington Post,
the Washington Compost coming out and doing a hit piece. And every time one of these loonies would come after us, and we'll read it or we'll watch their commentary, listen to it, and every single time, and a lot of times we'll talk about it on podcasts. And go list through everything they said, and we'll go, but you haven't disproven anything from the film. You've attacked us. You've attacked our faith. You've called us names.
Yep.
You called somebody in the film an extremist, but you haven't actually disproven anything from the film. Because
I never have to. That reminds me. Hold on. Sorry about this, but I meant to, because this was interesting to me. So in doing research about Mark and Amber, I came across this, which I thought was just hysterical.
Oh, it's gonna be good.
It literally was from nobody's ever heard of this. I'm not even going to give them credit where it came from, but this is what it said. Mark and Amber Archer of Fort Wayne, Indiana, are groomers.
What? I haven't seen this one. You'll have to send me the article.
They are grooming people with disinformation through a warped evangelical ministry. The real mind polluters are the archers.
Yes!
Yeah, you guys have hit the nail on the
head. You got to send me that. You have to send me that. I got to read it on our podcast.
And the article goes.
We have to end the interview now. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were that.
I'm sorry, you guys are groomers. So you go down, and it was, and honestly, it was somehow it made it on the front page of Google. I mean, oddly enough, right? They're trusted sources, but it was on there, and I'm reading this article, and I'm just laughing. I'm just like, I literally got done watching Dysphoria, and then I'm doing research and all that, and that pops up like, oh my gosh, these people, man! I'm telling you. I mean,
here's the thing, and this is why we share our testimony. We're like, we don't care. You know what? If you want to start slinging mud, because you know what you're doing, you're helping the gospel get shared.
Right.
You keep trying to knock us down. That's okay. The Lord's going to use every bit of it.
Yeah,
that's all right.
You got it. And right there, mind polluters. I mean, they said the film. They said, I mean, to me, it's like, oh, now people are in.
Like, who are these people? What's going on?
Who are these groomers? Who are these?
Well, I say curiosity kills the cat.
It does. You're right.
I keep waiting for someone to to try to go after me for my early films. And, he used to do these, his first movie was rated R and all, foul language, blah, blah, blah. Bring it on, because then I can tell you about Jesus. I can tell you about why I don't do stuff like that anymore. Let me tell you about the redemptive journey that the Lord brought me on. And
that's right.
And the man that I was and the man that I am now. And, praise the Lord for bringing that up. Thank you very much.
And I think that's where people fail too, is because you're upfront and honest about your path and your journey and how you got there and what led you down that. And most people want to shy away from that, right? They want to hide away from their past. That's the old me. I'm the new me. I don't want to discuss that. No, that's not how you do it. And that's how they end up getting you, is by you not being upfront and honest about the journey.
Yeah, like there's skeletons in the closet.
That's what they come after. Oh, that's right. Skeletons. That's right.
And what we have to understand too is there's more of us than there is of them. Mm-hmm. We just have to get the rest of us, because there's not enough of us speaking out, because it's like, we're just going to live our own lives. And that's the problem. There's more of us than there is of them. Problem. Let's stand up. Mm-hmm. And, as an adult, I don't agree with it. I honestly don't. I think it's crazy. I do think it's a mental illness. But if you want to do that, do that. Yep. Okay. Because there is a chance Miss Universe is going to be a man. Okay? There's a chance. Two countries, right? As an adult, I don't leave the kids alone. There is no way you can explain to me. There is no way you can convince me that this is the right way to go, let alone a 2.5-year-old child. Yeah. I thank you for bringing this out. And it's just...
for sure.
Go ahead, Mark. Yeah. Mark, sorry.
How can people reach you? How can they see this film? Where will it be available? You just give us all the information, please.
And like we said earlier, we had zero budget for the mind polluters. And so with this one, we're setting a goal, and we're going to say, okay, fine. We're going to raise enough capital to do a wide release all at one time and see what the Lord does with it. And so that's really what we're doing right now. And so we're just taking them individual, because a lot of people don't know who we are. We're still nobodies, and that's okay.
I can still go to Walmart and not be recognized and not like it.
Have you? I know Natalie has talked to you from Moms for Liberty here. Dale and I are tight with Moms for Liberty, and I think what we're going to try to do is, they always have breakout sessions or something, and maybe we'll see if they can put this movie in one of their breakout sessions. Because we do it school security. We have Wayne Black, who we talk to a lot, and so now I'm hoping we can get him in one of breakout. But these schools are always talking about this. From education to all of this stuff. This is perfect. A Moms for Liberty Summit would be perfect for you two to be there to talk about it too.
We're talking bigger scale, Jim. Let's get honest here. This thing needs to be
no. I get it.
Right?
No, but I'm like, because the Moms for Liberty is always doing these breakout sessions, and I think it would be perfect. Now, again, it's not till next year, but we want to push your movie, and we will. But it's just, I don't know. We know every time things come up, your story, the movie, is exactly what we hear constantly, and now it's a little bit more
constantly,
because everybody always heard about January. That's where everybody started, and then
hey, you know what? You know what, Jim? I'm going to let Amber finish now. Jim has his hand up.
Well, that's okay.
So the movies be released everywhere.
Well, yes. So that's what we're doing. We are right now. We just started a Be Light campaign for people who want to help us take this film nationwide. And so if they're mobile, they can text Be Light. It's one word. Don't separate it to 71777. And people can sign up to help crowdfund and to get us the resources that we need. Because what we found is working through, if we want to do a theatrical release, minimum entry is $250,000. Of course, we are a small nonprofit. We don't have $250,000, but we're hoping that people will see the vision and get behind it to say, hey, more people need to see this. And so that's our mission right now. Because we just finished Dysphoria, 8 weeks ago? So it's new. It's new, and
I can tell you that there's always a misconception with when people they'll look at your film and say, well, why don't you take it to this place or this place? I can tell you that even with the Mind Polluters, starting with Inwood Drive went straight to the top of one of the largest representation agencies in Hollywood. And they held on to it for a couple weeks, and then it eventually, no, sorry, we can't do anything with it, which didn't surprise us at all, right? Because we know who else they represent. We went, there's no way they're going to take this. Same thing happened with the Mind Polluters. They want to see it, and then everybody goes, oh, you do really great. It's the typical Hollywood line. Love your work, babe. Call me anytime. This one's not for us. And you just get rejected.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the wait time for that rejection letter is even shorter with Dysphoria. We have already shopped this around and slam. People now,
you're kidding me.
Because, in Hollywood, people generally, it used to be in Hollywood that people who hated you, but they thought that they could make a buck off of your product would still work with you.
Sure.
That's not the case anymore. Now they're actually saying, I'm not even going to talk to you because I hate you. And they're literally saying, I hate you and I hate the message of this film. I'm not going to help you.
Jeez.
And
we literally run a Zoom call with 3 guys from Hollywood, right? And so none of them have seen any of our work. But the first thing, we're like 5-10 minutes into this conversation with them, and they've heard about us, which is why we were obviously on the call with them.
I don't like you because you're dangerous.
Yeah, I know.
but the first thing they say is, well, have you thought about making a secular version? Can you take out all the Bible stuff,
the Jesus stuff, and the devil stuff?
Like, you obviously don't understand our ministry and what we're about, and that's okay. We're not for everybody. I'm not trying to be for everybody. I'm trying to wake up the people who are going to pay attention.
Yeah, and I told the guy, we said, listen, you really should watch the film before you make ridiculous requests like this. I said the first 5 minutes of the film is Romans 1. I can't rewrite the script. It's not my script. It's scripture. Right? I can't do a rewrite on that. It just, there's no understanding at all, right?
No other vapid. Like people like Angel Studios, things like that we've heard of. Like none of that is options.
Already been down that road.
And
everybody in the faith-based film community. And I'm not trying to trash anybody in particular, but everybody draws the lines somewhere, and they say, this is the kind of film we want to do. And this is the kind of film we want to do. And so when people see something like the Mind Polluters or Dysphoria, and the thing that they say over and over again is, nobody else is doing stuff like this. And now you understand why it's so difficult, because nobody else is doing this. So where are you going? Where's it going to fit? Well, whose catalog is it going to fit into? Nobody's, because nobody will do it. Right? Because everybody's got their catalog of product. And if you take something like Dysphoria or the Mind Polluters or Inwood Drive On, you're risking everything else that you have, and they're not willing to do that. So it's not that they don't. It's not that they don't have good product with good, Christian content in it. But when the Archers come along, it's scary to them, right?
Incredible.
So
that's incredible.
So they won't touch it. So that's why we truly are out on just the ragged edge all the time. But very few people will even talk to us. But when we get our film in front of an audience,
oh my goodness,
the audience reacts very quickly, and they say, "Absolutely, we want to help you." But the gatekeepers are still very. They don't want to help you.
It's crazy.
Jim, you don't have $250 grand. You don't have.
I would
help them out there.
But this show is costing us $250 grand to do. So
I had 200.
Can't you tell by the big production studio?
I left my $250,000 in the Aston Martin.
Yeah,
and I lost the keys, and I can't remember where I parked it.
Or I parked it in Chicago, and I can't find it. So somebody took it. It's one of those things.
So in the meantime,
wow!
I think I got 50
well,
cents.
You two, I'm telling you, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you two on. Is there a sneak peek of what's next, maybe for y'all, or
do you have to wait to watch the movie?
Keep that to yourselves.
So, well, we're always thinking, sometimes we have to be careful we don't get ahead of the Lord.
Yeah.
So, but we have thought about another title in the investigative documentary realm. I think it'll probably be exploring the theme of the church at Laodicea, the lukewarm church. So
lukewarm church.
So probably something along those lines.
Any documentary on two guys trying to make a name for themselves on the podcast or something?
I mean, who wouldn't want to see
that's been done a few times.
Oh, all right.
Has it?
Shucks.
Has it? Dang it.
No, love your work, babe. Like, call me.
Really.
We'll do lunch.
If you do like reenactments and you need a star or something, I mean, just give me a call.
That's another good thing too.
Anyways, both of you, we can't thank you enough. People need to see this film. They can learn more about it at the website. Give us the website again.
It's dysphoriamovie.com.
Perfect. Dysphoriamovie.com. And on there, you can also learn about Fearless Features. They can hear your podcast on that, which is great too, because I started listening to it. It's very well done. Both of you, I mean, you're doing God's work, and there just needs to be more of it out there. We can't thank you enough for doing it and putting this documentary out there. Really, I hope it reaches every country and everybody gets to see it, because that's how important it is. We have a friend who talks about protecting youth and all that. And if not us, who, we'll do this. And it's the truth. It's that. And if not, now, then when,
That's
right? So it's that whole motto, and you got to get it out there. We can't thank you enough for doing it and for coming on our show and sharing your story, your personal stories, and the story about your films, and specifically Dysphoria. Please come back.
Thanks for having us.
New to say, we are here for you. So please do come back anytime. We'd love to have you back.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Well, folks, that's a power couple right there. I mean, if two people were ever meant to meet and do the work they're doing, this is them. They're phenomenal. Just great, good souls. Their story, can't thank them enough for sharing it with us. We talked about it. A lot of people won't share their history. A lot of stuff they're not proud of. And here they embrace it because it's how they got to that point. And folks, you know how you can go dysphoriamovie.com. You can get out there, you can stream it. It's incredible. I can't tell you enough how well done this documentary is.
We need to warn ahead of time because there's all of these stories are. It's disturbing what we are putting our children through, and untrained professionals, who are guiding them and believing that it's okay not to notify the parents. It's all just, and again, for all of you, the key thing is that we talked about it during the interview. All people like us agree. We're going to go to this movie. We're going to watch it. We're going to believe the same thing. We're going to feel the same thing. It's just going to be wrong. But we're not the group that we need to reach out to.
No.
So, folks, if you watch this movie, when you pay for streaming when it comes out, or like myself and hopefully some people that live in the area of Fort Wayne,
because they're local to Fort Wayne.
Yes,
we didn't really talk a lot about that, but
they're actually having the showing on December 1st, and I encourage as many people who are local to this. To Fort Wayne, where the viewing is going to be, please go. I know I've got a group of people that are going, and their tickets are not that bad. Okay, when you think about what it is, who they are, what they're doing, it's very little money. It's very little, and you go and you're going to hear things. Okay, and it's going to be disturbing, but that's how it's meant to be. But
that's how it's meant to be, because
when we watch it,
unbelievable,
and when you watch it. You got to share it with the people who don't feel the way you do. Now, you and I talk. I have a couple people in my family that I'm going to try to get to go to this movie. I don't know if they're going to go, but I want them to go because it's the other individuals that have to hear this. They get, because how many times, Dale, have we heard, show me, it's not happening. It's just being made up. It's not really happening. It's happening.
There's nothing in this movie that can be, I guess, if you want to say, it can be debated, right? You can debate certain things,
whatever you want,
but it's irrefutable evidence on what is happening to our nation's youth out there and across the world. And it's a global. If there's ever a global pandemic, it's this, and it's on purpose, and by design. And they go into details about, why that is and what really is the cause of it and why. Of course, we've all talked ad nauseum, and people listening, about how it's a control. They want to control the youth. They want to break up the family unit. It's all that part of the plan, but
they can't drive. They can't drive until they're 16. You can't go see a rated R movie under the age of 17. But you can decide to
can't get a tattoo under 18.
But you can decide to become the opposite sex.
Can't rent a car until you're 25.
There's nothing wrong with this.
There's nothing wrong with this, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Yeah, it's incredible. So what an incredible couple. We can't wait for for people to see this movie called Dysphoria. It's exactly what you think it's intended to do. Incredible people. So honored to know them now. And thank you, Jim. Thank you, Natalie from Moms for Liberty.
Natalie, especially,
for introducing Jim to this. That you kind of hooked all this up. So it was kind of all you're doing on the front end of all this. So I appreciate that, because it's without it, I may not have known this movie's out there, and you got to pass the word. And we're going to advertise it. We're going to advertise it. We're going to advertise it because it needs to be seen.
Yeah, and they have other movies they'll talk about, and we encourage you to watch those too. So
yeah, absolutely. They have, which I have not gone back and watched, but I am so going to.
Yeah. Well, especially
go back and watch those movies, because
Mind
Polluters especially, and then the first one, Inwood Drive. That's creepy. There's creepy things, guys, going on, and I cannot wait to see both of those, because like you mentioned, they all kind of tie together, and they're going down this path that God has led them down clearly. I mean, their story alone, if you don't believe in God, something's wrong with you.
Like we said before, and like we said on the interview, a lot of people that are down on their luck. Whether they're addictions or depression or what sort, a lot of the success stories, if not all of the success stories, has God in it.
Have God in it.
And I don't like to use the term finding God, because he's always been there. It's just people.
I know, but in a way,
they have brought him back into their life. And he never left them.
Yep.
Because he never leaves you. You may leave him for a little while,
Sure.
but
everybody does at times.
He never leaves you.
You question faith, you question all that. And then they were very, what was good too, Jim, is they were very upfront and honest about the church in itself and how
that
frightened they are to even show a movie like this for fear of losing their financial tax exempt statuses. And it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And
Money
you
talks,
and I
man.
both thinking that a church would be the perfect place for this, right?
The exact place for this.
Faith-based. It's, I mean, because during the movie, they reference God a lot. Their religion, their how they have been touched. And I'm telling you, it's a scary, scary situation.
Yeah.
And I thank them because we all know, we talked about it. We all know what happens when people like this come out and do stuff like this. There's hate. And on this movie, there is going to be a lot of hate.
A lot of it.
A lot of it. So
that's right. That's right. So, but anyways, thank you to Mark and Amber for coming on and telling their story and telling us about this movie and for the work they're doing. Folks, there's people like this, that are doing hard work and, I'm worried about what's for dinner tonight or so, what I mean? Like there's just all sorts of, we all get caught in that, our
lives,
it's lives in general. Right.
But it's a real quick support. I mean, whether you pay for streaming when it comes out or go to the movie to watch it but pass it on to somebody who maybe doesn't know the story or is ignorant about it, who thinks that, well, you just don't like transgenders or something like that. It's important that this gets out. It's important. It's I cannot stress it enough.
I can't either. So, Jim, I like your shirt today too. Let's get into that. You can get that at our shop and you can get one and look as handsome as Jim, if not maybe better. It's hard to believe it could be better, but
you don't like the hat?
The hat means nothing to me. I don't know. It's like my hat. It's stupid Adidas. It means nothing. But yeah, your hat, no, absolutely not.
This hat means a lot to me.
It kind of clashes with the background. It makes, I think you're, no.
Red clashes with red.
Well, it's
red and white, and behind me is red, white, and blue.
But I don't know. Maybe it's your face that clashes.
Okay, I think that's what you mean.
Maybe it's your face. Hey, folks, how about you follow us on Rumble?
Yes.
Would you like to do that?
Follow,
because you can. Thank you, Jim. You can do those exact three things in that order: like, follow, and share, or just follow, and share.
Or
you can just follow, and share. But anyways, do it on Rumble because yes. Am I still posting on YouTube temporarily until they kick us off? Yes, but you don't want to go there. Stick with Rumble. Hit that like button, hit that follow button, hit that share button, and everybody share this episode and hear their story, Mark and Amber's story. And get this movie out there, Dysphoria. You can go to dysphoriamovie.com and learn all about it and about their organization and about Mark and Amber in general. Great people. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal human beings.
Another situation that's when we started this journey on this podcast, I feel like I have met people that made me a better person. And I'm not exaggerating that. We have and I'm not going to start to name them because I'm going to forget somebody. But they know who they are. They know who they are. And there's people out there that fight fights that we could not even potentially imagine.
go to.
But we're going to do everything we can to help them. And it's like I said, there's more of us than there are them.
Yes,
and we just need the more of us to stand up.
Yep, and speak out. Yeah, good point. Good way to say it, Jim. That's the best way to end the show, I think, today, folks. So thank you again to Mark and Amber. Thank you, Jim, for hooking all that up. That I do appreciate it because we are better people for knowing them, no doubt about it. And you'll be a better person for watching their film and helping them, supporting them for sure. So go ahead and do that. Folks, we will be back Thursday, another interview. We'll tell you all about it then. But until then, Jim, I got nothing else to add. I just want to say goodbye to you.
Bye.
And congratulations again to your son and his fiance.
Thank you.
Looking forward to that Maldives wedding. Jim, until then, we'll see you on Thursday.
Bye.
Adios. Bye.
You've been listening to the Two Guys, One Coup podcast with Dale and Jim, Remember, you can watch on YouTube and Rumble and listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it, and it helps others find us when searching for podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and TikTok. Just search for 2 Guys, 1 Coup. That's the number 2, guys, and the number 1, Coup, C-O-U-P. Thanks again for listening to the 2 Guys, 1 Coup podcast, and God bless the United States of America.